So another thing I want to talk about is I really consider what's going on in the whole health wellness space that, I think we have a diet war going on.
Hmm.
There's a
Hmm.
war between, the vegan, the vegetarian,
Hmm.
the paleo, the carnivore, the high protein, the low
Hmm.
protein, the high carb, low carb. I mean, just it's craziness, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
a person who's trying to find a good diet, and it's very difficult. I mean, they will try different ones and see what stick and what works. So I want to see what your test,
Hmm.
how is that going to orient people toward different
Yeah.
directions?
Yeah, and you know what, you brought up such an important point. And the reality is that there's no diet that works for everyone, right? And more often than not, look, how would you describe yourself? You're an individual, right? Well, if you are an individual, guess what? Your diet is going to be individual to you. It's not going to be, this kind of box, one size fits all, like, oh, I'm a keto person now. Well, is keto even safe for you in the first place? Genetically, there are people who, if they go on a ketogenic diet, which is a traditionally high fat, low carb, low sugar diet, they could develop type 2 diabetes,
Hmm.
right? Think about that. Zero sugar diet, and they could develop type 2 diabetes. Why? Because, well, perhaps they're able to metabolize their fats very well and create energy from it. But at one point, their the production of energy, which will lead to glucose-like byproducts that they'll produce for the use of energy, those will build up in their bloodstream. And if they have insulin resistance, if they're not releasing insulin at the right time, well, they're going to have hyperglycemia. They're going to develop hyperglycemia because they have an influx of energy available that's coursing through the blood, but they don't have the hormone the necessary to transport that energy into the cell. And so we always tell people, look, when you build a diet, the first thing you have to understand is, how do you perceive food? That goes back to the FTO and the satiety, but also many people use food as a coping mechanism, right? You could tell someone till you're blue in the face, hey, you eat boiled chicken and broccoli for the rest of your life, you're going to be super healthy. And they might do it for 5 days, 6 days, but on the seventh day, they went through a breakup with spouse, or they got into a car accident, or they lost their job. Guess what? The only thing that's going to make them happy is a tub of ice cream, right? Now, if you didn't know that that was your genetic predisposition, that when you go under stress, you need to eat a tub of ice cream, literally, there's a gene combination for that. If you didn't know that, you would just keep eating the ice cream and you'd be like, man, I don't work on this diet. Like, you just constantly make yourself feel like a failure. But if you knew that when you're under stress, you need an ice cream experience, you could have bananas in the freezer with berries, and you could quickly Vitamix and blend frozen bananas, and that would be a much healthier ice cream alternative than eating Haagen-Dazs or whatever it is, Magnum bars that you bought, right? So you can plan for those hiccups, and there's always going to be hiccups. Now, on what diet works for most people? Well, there are genes that influence your ability to metabolize and digest fats and carbohydrates. There are genes
Hmm.
that influence your ability to deal with things like mercury or charred food, right? So when we're helping build people's diets, first we need to understand, well, what's your lifestyle like? If you're sitting 8 hours a day on the computer, or 12 hours a day on the computer, as most people do nowadays, versus you're an athlete, I promise you, your diets are going to be different. They're going to be night and day. An athlete who's burning and performing and needs things, they're going to have a much higher calorie percentage diet, and they might have things that you as a normal person will not. And even within athletes, they're not eating the same way when they're preparing for performance, when they're preparing for an event, when they're resting, right? So the 3 months that they're getting ready for their big event, they're eating a different way. And then the 3 months after the event, when they're resting, they're eating a different way. So diets have to be individualistic, and they have to be developed in collaboration with a healthcare practitioner, because that's important. You don't want to go out and start trying different diets yourself. You need to have someone who has the knowledge about whole food nutrition to identify what works for you, right? Let's say you've never eaten an orange in your life. You're going to start eating an orange in your life going forward. Like, let's say that your genes say you need more vitamin C in your life because your vitamin C transport sucks. Well, you need to be taught how to effectively build a habit of eating an orange for the rest of your life. And it's not just buy an orange, start eating it. No, it's like buy an orange and put it on your side table so that you get used to looking at an orange. That's week one. And the week 2 is like, well, cut the orange and leave it at your bedside table. And then you sort of build those sustainable habits, right? So we do so much in behavioral change. We work with Dr. BJ Fogg out of Stanford University to develop behavioral change recommendations in our testing. And we always believe that diets are individualistic, and we will work with you to help build a diet that you can sustain. And more often than not, it will combine some paleo, it will combine some keto, it will combine some intermittent fasting, but ultimately it's a diet that works for you, not a diet that works for everyone, supposedly, right?
How much would the DNA test be able to tell you what kind of diet is good for you?
So the DNA test will point to certain things. For example, your vitamin A your relationship with vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, your micronutrients, your ability to metabolize fats, your ability to metabolize carbohydrates. If you are a poor metabolizer of fats, you should not be on keto because you're not metabolizing your fats. You're going to put on weight on a ketogenic diet. If you are a really good metabolizer of fats, but you have insulin resistance, your genes predispose you to insulin resistance, you should also not be on keto, but for an opposite reason, because you could cause hyperglycemia. So in either case, we can identify things you need to look out for, things you need to be aware of. For vegans, to be completely honest with you, there's a very small percentage of the human population that can survive long-term sustainably on a vegan diet, simply because most of them don't realize that the nutrients, the micronutrients and the minerals that they need, they're not deriving them effectively from plants as they were from animals, right? So certain vitamins, your B vitamins, for example, your vitamin A, for example, retinol palmitate, that needs to come from an animal source. Now, if you're a vegan, you have to source a cultured or bacterial or algae-based, version of that formulation in order to get the same effect. Like, you just can't take beta carotene from squash and pumpkins and think that you're getting enough vitamin A. You'll need a very specific form of converted, activated vitamin A that only comes from animals or bacterial or synthetic sources. So we can get extremely precise about things to watch out for, things to work on. And once you have that information, well, now you know sort of the foundation. Like, this is where I exist. And then there's a lot of opportunity to try different things, right? Try the kale. Kale doesn't work. Try lettuce. Lettuce doesn't work. Try beets. But at least you're not trying fried chicken in the middle, or at least you're not trying like heavy keto diets, right? Like, not everyone should be eating a steak and cheese and avocados every day for dinner. Like, it's not healthy for most people. So the DNA test can help really identify sort of the things you need to look out for. And then we can help you build a sustainable diet, teach you how to like keep that diet for the rest of your life.
That's amazing.